Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mac. Boys and girls, we are only 2 days into October, and already it is turning out to be a heck of a month. Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to get uglier before it gets any better, and I think we all know that this is Red Ugly October. So I decided to just go ahead and stock up on popcorn now. And by stock up, I just mean I'm just going to eat it all now. That's live footage of me right there getting it all in. Don't judge me. It's just the way I like to do things. We've got a bunch of Q posts, so we're going to get started right here. 23:01, 28 minutes after the hour of 1 p.m. We get this Twitter link right here. And Q says, VIP Patriots, they call in threats prior to each rally in an effort to diminish reach of a message. All for a LARP. When one shirt is not enough, two becomes the solution. And the Twitter link takes you here to Maria Wall at Maria Wall 93 on Twitter. I was just told by the Secret Service that I cannot come inside the stadium wearing a shirt with a Q on it. And here's the picture there. Let me blow that up. Look at that good looking crew right there. Man, that's a nice looking, is that a family? I'm assuming that's all family right there. All MAGA hats. Good, looks like a baseball team right there. Well, that's a bummer. So it looks like they did not get into the rally in Tennessee with their Q shirts on there. Q is simply suggesting to maybe wear two shirts. Well, we've seen quite a bit of this, haven't we? Deep State calling in threats prior to each rally in an effort to diminish reach of message. I suppose that's for a couple reasons, right? Number one, they would love to start something at one of these rallies and, of course, pin it on a bunch of Q people. And I think they also want to call these threats in so that people will not wear their Q shirts, so that people won't see those Q shirts on TV and Q won't get the attention that it deserves. Now, I do have a feeling that at some point, President Trump may come clean with it all and expose Q, maybe on live TV. We don't really know. Maybe that is why Q is suggesting to wear two shirts. Maybe at some point, all these patriots are going to walk in with two shirts. And at some point, maybe Trump will give the signal and everyone can take off that outward shirt and show their Q. I'm not really sure how it will play out, but I would love to see it like that. That would be a true Spartacus moment. I'm not talking Cory Booker, not so Spartacus moment. I'm talking about a true Spartacus moment where everybody pulls off and they're like, I am Q.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
Now, I'm not saying it's going to go down like that, but I am saying it would be totally sweet if it did. Let's move on to post 23:02, 15 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m. We're going to get a quick history lesson. And ladies and gentlemen, when you want to know about history, look no further than an entitled Hollywood actor who plays Captain America in the movies, who incidentally his logo looks a little bit more like Captain Puerto Rico. I'm just saying. Chris Evans says there's nothing more maddening than debating someone who doesn't know history, doesn't read books, and frames their myopia as virtue. The level of unapologetic conjecture I've encountered lately isn't just frustrating, it's retrogressive, unprecedented, and absolutely terrifying. And he is responding to this tweet from Kanye West, who made a pretty bold move wearing his MAGA hat on Saturday Night Live the other day. And then he kind of went into a little speech that NBC cut off because, you know, hooray, free speech. Kanye says this represents good and America becoming whole again. We will no longer outsource to other countries. We build factories here in America and create jobs. We will provide jobs for all who are free from prisons, and as we abolish the 13th Amendment. Looks like there was more to that tweet there. But pretty ballsy move right there from Kanye West. I've never been a huge fan, but I have to say 2018, I'm coming around on Kanye West. And of course, Chris Evans doesn't like that because he thinks it frames our myopia as virtue. And he thinks that we're unapologetic. And we're just offering a bunch of conjecture. So thanks for the civics lesson, Chris Evans. I have a feeling your next movie is going to be a lesson in subtraction.
So you can run and tell that, homeboy.
The second Twitter link takes you to one Katrina Pearson, who posts, white Republican men are evil, they say, but who, number one, abolished slavery. Number two, introduced the 19th, giving women a voice. Number three, fought the KKK that was established, owned, and operated by Democratic Party. Number four, fought Democrats for 1964 Civil Rights Act. Imagine if they had shut up. Hashtag liberal logic. Well, thanks for that, Katrina Pearson. Maybe Chris Evans could get a civics lesson from you. Well, Q goes on to say, why is the Democratic Party fighting to change history? Because it doesn't paint them in such a good light when you actually get the facts, and facts matter. Now, look, there's racist in every party, and there's racists all over the world. We're never really going to truly be able to control that. But the fact of the matter is there was a lot of racism steeped in the Democratic Party back in the day. And they've tried to paint that narrative into saying basically that the old Democratic Party is now the new Republican Party. And that line no longer is going to be swallowed. We are sheep no more. More and more people are walking away from the Democratic Party. They're seeing the flaws. They're seeing the ugliness. They're seeing the unfounded accusations. They're seeing the childish nature of the way that they handle politics. And I think most importantly, they're seeing the fact that the Democratic Party right now does not have a platform. Now, I don't think it's really important to kind of harp on party politics either way. I'm not really much of a partisan politics kind of guy. I don't necessarily consider myself a Republican. I don't really consider myself anything but just a flat out patriot. And I think that's how most people feel these days. And that's what a lot of Democrats are too. They're just patriots. And when you start to see this kind of sickness, you don't want to be a part of it anymore. Who wants to be a part of, I don't want to just say a losing team, but a team that just pushes their vitriol all day long? It will never last. It just won't. So it's exciting to see. And if you are one of those Democrats that are walking away, or if you're new to QAnon, or if you're kind of new to this whole thing, welcome to you. We don't care what color you are. We don't care what race, creed, religion, or where you're from. It doesn't matter. We are world patriots, and all we want is the facts. All we want is the truth, and all we want is a little liberty in our lives, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. And over here on this channel, you're all welcome. And from time to time, we have cake. Let's move on. Post 2303, 29 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m. We get this picture right here from back on September 29th. The previous post, 2298. And Q says, how many plane crashes since post? Standard deviation. Well, I'm not sure exactly how many. We had a couple in South Carolina that seemed kind of funky, considering that's Lindsey Graham and Trey Gowdy territory. And now we've got these over here near Laverne County. This is off of KTLA. 1 dead after second fatal plane crash near Laverne Airport in 2 days. For the second time in less than 24 hours, firefighters have responded to a fatal plane crash in the vicinity of the airport in Laverne, authorities said Monday. The latest incident was reported at Brackett Field Airport, located at 1650 McKinley Avenue around 11:50 a.m., according to a Laverne Police Department news release. The Beach Bonanza aircraft was approaching the runway when it crashed, with initial reports indicating it may have hit a tree, a Federal Aviation Administration official said in an emailed statement. The plane burst into flames after impact, sending a thick plume of black smoke high into the air. Firefighters responded to the scene and were able to quickly extinguish the blaze, a Laverne Fire Department dispatcher told KTLA shortly after noon. One person, the plane's sole occupant, was killed in the fiery crash, police said. Sky 5 video over the charred wreckage showed a sheet was placed over what appeared to be the cockpit of the small plane. A pilot who was nearby described what he saw. I was the first one to land, and I believe this pilot was the second one coming in. Steve, who was also flying into the airport on Monday, told KTLA. Right when I exited the runway, I looked to the right and saw big black smoke and flames. So apparently it looks like he undershot the runway and landed short of the runway. Well, that seems very strange because it seems kind of similar to what we saw in South Carolina. Now it says here, not far from the site, the mangled remains of an aircraft that crashed the evening before in a plant nursery remained at the scene early Monday afternoon, the aerial footage showed. Now check this out. A man was killed and a woman injured when the single Cessna 177RG, that looks like a 17, went down along the 1600 block of Puddingstone Drive around 5:45 p.m. Sunday, authorities said. So I guess if it were 5:45 p.m., wouldn't that be 17:45 p.m.? Less than a minute before the crash, the pilot radioed the airport's control tower to report engine trouble, according to the LA Times. All right, so this is really strange, but I think we all know kind of what's up, right? And Q is definitely confirming here that we're getting a lot of plane crashes, particularly this year. So scary times indeed. Q says, how many plane crashes since the post? I'm not exactly sure how many total, but we've definitely had a few. Standard deviation, well, it's starting to feel like it's getting standard, so be safe out there, patriots. Now, in regards to his picture titles here, I gotta say I'm still a little bit confused, but I wanted to point out that Anon had mentioned that BA very well could be in regards to British Airways and maybe not BAH being Bahrain. I'm not really sure. It could be true. But if you go to their site, it is indeed a very similar looking business class there on British Airways. So he very well could be right. Now, I pointed out at the end of the stringer here that the Z9, 9 letters before Z would be Q. And then you see here Q9 in this title here, which would take us back to Z. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, but on either side of this title here, we have a Q. Then we have 9JPJD. So JPJD, could those be some names? Not really sure. Also, there is a Flight 381 from British Airways, which is this right here, from France to London. Now, I'm not sure if this has anything to do with our flight, if we need to be looking at something on British Airways, but it very well could be a British Airways plane. I still think it could be a United plane too, but it looks like they have a very, very similar business class section. They look almost identical. So I'm not sure, but this is Flight 381, thanks to the Anon who sent me this too. But now I'm really curious about who these JP and JD could be, and maybe we'll get some insight in the next post here, 2304. 42 minutes after the hour of 2 p.m. An Anon post this, and this is a rather long post. This was regarding John Perry Barlow's death. And let me take you over here, and we'll try and blow it up here. James Dolan, dead, suicide. Excuse me, this was from back on February 15th. Aaron Schwartz, dead, suicide. Kevin Paulson, turned over secure drop to freedom of the press. Secure drop, freedom of the press. So James Dolan, Aaron Schwartz, Kevin Paulson were all members of freedom of the press here. Freedom of the press, John Barlow, Snowden, Assange, John Cusack, Daniel Ellsberg, Glenn Greenwald, Laura Poitras, just showing sort of a friendship chain, if you will. Snowden and Cusack, things that can and cannot be said. Daniel Ellsberg, Pentagon Papers. Glenn Greenwald, Snowden, The Guardian. Laura Poitras, Snowden, The Program, William Binney. So they're showing some connections here between these people. John Barlow, Vice President, Algae Systems Treating Wastewater. Barlow/Clark, Burning Man. General Clark, anti-Trump. Westpac supports Clintons. I think the key is the media changing the narrative using secure drop, which is dictated heavily by Snowden. The big question, who controls Snowden? And then we have this here from Q. James Dolan, dead, suicide. Aaron Schwartz, dead, suicide. Kevin Paulson, turned over secure drop to freedom of the press. John Perry Barlow, 187, post name drop at Snowden, you are now a liability. Now the Anon goes on to dig here, says John Barlow dig. Who would want to kill John Barlow? What benefit would John Barlow's death provide? When was John Barlow murdered? Did John Barlow survive a murder attempt only to succumb to its lingering effects eventually? And this is from the Washington Post. Meet the man whose utopian vision for the internet conquered and then warped Silicon Valley. And that is in regards to this Washington Post article right here, but we're just going to cover it here. To understand where this cyber libertarian ideology came from, you have to understand the influence of a Declaration of the Independence of Cyberspace, one of the strangest artifacts of the 90s, and its singular author, John Perry Barlow. Perhaps more than any other, it's his philosophy, which melded countercultural utopianism, a rancher's skepticism towards government, and a futurist faith in the virtual world that shaped the industry. A Declaration of the Independence of Cyberspace was an utterly serious document for a deliriously optimistic era. Barlow's 846-word text, published online in February 1996, begins with a bold rebuke of traditional sovereign powers. Governments of the industrial world, you weary giants of flesh and steel. I come from cyberspace, the new home of mind. On behalf of the future, I ask you of the past to leave us alone. You are not welcome among us. You have no sovereignty where we gather. He then explains how cyberspace is a place of ultimate freedom, where conventional laws don't apply. When Eric Schmidt describes the internet, however misguidedly, as the world's largest ungoverned space in his book The New Digital Age, he is borrowing Barlow's rhetoric. When tech mogul Peter Thiel writes in The Education of a Libertarian that he founded PayPal to create a currency free from government control, and that by starting a new internet business, an entrepreneur may create a new world. It's impossible not to hear Barlovian echoes. That grandiose attitude is so common now that HBO has a comedy, Silicon Valley, dedicated to mocking it. And then here is the Washington Post link on that article. I'll leave it down below for you, but it is a rather long article. The above article was published on March 20th, 2015. Barlow suffered a near-fatal heart attack on May 27th, 2015. He later reported that he was recovering. John Perry Barlow, 187, post name drop. Now, this was from some of Q drops here, and this Anon is basically taking them and trying to put it together. 187 being murder, post equal Washington Post, Barlovian equals name drop. Q suggests John Barlow was murdered for his ability to influence through his activities in the Freedom of the Press Foundation. The Washington Post article highlights Barlow's ability to influence wealthy techno-capitalists towards his idealistic goals. At Snowden, you are now a liability. Freedom of the Press Foundation is a nonprofit organization founded in 2012 to fund and support free speech and freedom of the press. Its mission includes promoting and funding aggressive public interest journalism focused on exposing mismanagement, corruption, and law-breaking in government. If wealthy people support Barlow's idealistic goals, then they might help support the Freedom of the Press Foundation's goals, promoting and funding aggressive public interest journalism focused on exposing mismanagement, corruption, and law-breaking in government. Edward Snowden has moved into the position which was vacant due to Barlow's death. Q is stating Edward Snowden is identified as a liability by the same individuals who caused John Barlow's 187. Other unanswered questions. Whose crimes are threatened to be exposed by John Barlow's activities? Was John Barlow's relationship with Dick Cheney part of the motive that led to his death? Was the heart-related death of Barlow's girlfriend, Cynthia Horner, a botched first attempt to murder John Barlow? John Barlow was engaged to Cynthia Horner, a doctor whom he met in 1993 at the Moscone Center in San Francisco while she was attending a psychiatry conference, and Barlow was participating in a Steve Jobs comedy roast at a convention for the Next Computer. Cynthia Horner died unexpectedly in 1994 while asleep on a flight from Los Angeles to New York City, days before her 30th birthday, from a heart arrhythmia apparently caused by an undetected viral myocarditis. Who adapted Jacob Silverman's book for the Washington Post article? Jacob Silverman is the author of Terms of Service, Social Media, and the Price of Constant Connection, from which this article is adapted. Is the Washington Post article a hit piece or coincidence? Q says simple. We made it public. Operation closed and cleaned. Coincidence post drop. Coincidence no name being Senator McCain. Exact 30 days. Coincidence Senator Graham activated. In the end, you will be shocked to learn what you've essentially witnessed. Think NYC bomber fireworks hours prior. Where we go one, we go all. Q. Now, I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with this, but let me take you back to some previous posts regarding John Perry Barlow, who died on February 7th. And this is a post from January 28th. At Snowden, the clock is ticking. How's Russia? Mr. Contractor. Freedom of the Press. John Perry Barlow. Secure drop. Whistleblowers. Secure drop. Clowns in America. Nobody is safe. Q. Secure drop was this open source software that a lot of journalists were touting, sort of like Tor, a way to basically drop a bunch of their information and share without being, really traced or whatever. Well, it turns out it looks like this thing was run by the CIA, Clowns in America, which it looks like Snowden was indeed a clown too. Q is calling that out. This was in January. Remember, John Perry Barlow died in February. Now, let me take you over to this post. Also, January 28th. Q says heart attacks can be deadly, and that is indeed how John Perry Barlow did die. Now, we're not exactly sure what the real story was, whether it was some sort of pill or something like that, but it looks like Q knew about it ahead of time. Q references that a few days later after the death on February 12th here. Think BDT, NYC attempt, and Barlow. Well, Q is basically pointing out a couple events that they knew of ahead of time that they were warning us about. This BDT, NYC attempt was there was this man who basically strapped a bomb to himself. He was going to go bomb the New York City subway, and it ended up just being kind of like gunpowder or something like that. He ended up blowing himself up. Nobody really got hurt. He wasn't even killed. He was just, a little bit injured. His ego probably more than anything. But Q couldn't come right out and say that it was a Bangladeshi man. So Q posted BDT, and we figured out that it was either Bangladeshi time or in reference to the Bangladeshi currency. Q originally spoke it as blunt and direct time, but we figured out that it was a Bangladeshi man. And it was essentially kind of an early Q proof that Q knew about it ahead of time. Q says not stated for verification of credibility. Why are we still here given foreknowledge of events? No FBI investigation into this? No, there wasn't. Impossible to locate? Less than 10. Who are we talking to? Since clown takedown of black ops, location public, exposure. What has changed here? Expand your thinking. This is not a game. And then we have a reference again to Red October. Well, in this case, could we be talking about this? Red October was a cyber espionage malware program discovered in October 2012 and uncovered in January 2013 by Russian firm Kaspersky Lab. The malware was reportedly operating worldwide for up to 5 years prior to discovering, transmitting information ranging from diplomatic secrets to personal information, including from mobile devices. The primary vectors used to install the malware were emails containing attached documents that exploited vulnerabilities in Microsoft Word and Excel. Later, a web page was found that exploited a known vulnerability in the Java browser plugin. Red October was termed an advanced cyber espionage campaign intended to target diplomatic, governmental, and scientific research organizations worldwide. So could that be our Red October that Q was originally saying hunt for Red October, and then of course it looked like they had found it. They took the hunt away. Now that was a while back, and for those of you who are newer to Q, I would suggest going back to earlier Q drops. Q originally mentioned Hunt for Red October. And of course, we all thought they were talking about the movie reference, Hunt for Red October. Could that be another Red October that we're talking about? Now, let me take you to this other February post. You will cease to exist. Truth to power. How's the bunker these days? 14 live, which I'm assuming there's 14 people inside this bunker. Hello. PEOC force failed. Coincidence? Truth to power? Coincidence? Barlow? Learn. What if Snowden was still a clown? Why would it be important he was in Russia? Learn. So I'm not exactly sure where Edward Snowden is these days, but he was familiar with John Perry Barlow. They had gone and done speaking engagements together. I would assume that John Perry Barlow kind of was exposing this. He was, like they say, sort of a cyber libertarian. So I'm not really sure what the ins and outs of this are, but Q definitely seems to be pointing out that there was an event, and it looks like it may have something to do. I'm not sure if it had something to do with this particular plane, but there were some plane events. There were a lot of suspicious deaths in relation with this John Barlow, this Paulson, and this Aaron Schwartz, all supposedly committed suicide. And it looks like it's all coming up now. So let's read this again. Q says, simple, we made it public. Operation Closed and Clean. Could that have been the Operation Red October? This was called Operation Red October. So that could have been it. Coincidence, post-drop, coincidence, no name. Now we're talking about Senator McCain. Exact 30. Remember, Q knew 30 days before that no name was going to go away. Coincidence, Senator Graham activated. Remember, Senator Graham was basically attached to the hip to John McCain. Now all of a sudden he's playing the good guy. In the end, you will be shocked to learn what you've essentially witnessed. Think New York City bomber, fireworks hours prior. So it looks like Q is saying that this is an event maybe yet to come. Maybe we haven't seen it yet. But it looks like shocked and essentially are highlighted. Where we go one, we go all. Let's move on for now. Post 2305, 4 minutes after the hour of 3 p.m., responding to an Anon who says Ford should go down for perjury. Q says, refuse to hand over therapy notes to FBI. Think why? Well, I guess they'd be afraid of what's in those notes, right? Justice Kavanaugh was never named. Then in brackets it says, Mr. X logged in book along with physical description during eyes closed session. And I'm assuming that this means it doesn't add up or doesn't equal Justice Kavanaugh. So it sounds like they had an eyes closed session, maybe some sort of hypnotherapy or something like that, where she actually described her attacker. Well, check this out from this journal. Meditation with yoga, group therapy with hypnosis and psychoeducation for long-term depressed mood, a randomized pilot trial. And you can see this here, this Lisa D. Butler, Lindsay Wild, and we have down below one Christine M. Blassie. So she's pretty familiar with that kind of stuff. And an Anon posted this on Twitter today too, this Theodore E. Bear. Not sure if she's even a real doctor. This nearly wiped Facebook account could be a fake too, but who knows? Maybe in Palo Alto, she's sometimes goes by her alter, Paula. Curiouser and curiouser. Look at that, Paula Blasey, boy, so this just gets weirder by the second, right? And of course, Stanford girl, a lot of creeps over there at Stanford. And they've got an MK Ultra program over there. Her family seems to be very clowny, from her grandfather to her father to her brother, right? All CIA clowns. Q says, FBI, no subpoena power, no grand jury to demand. Justice Kavanaugh never named or asked during polygraph. Yeah, they only asked her a couple questions, and it had nothing to do with Justice Kavanaugh. So this is just an absolute soup sandwich. Something did happen to Dr. Ford in her past. Yeah, I didn't doubt that, and she does seem sort of like she's got some sort of repressed memory or something like that. Now, there was a weird situation when she was being interviewed. When she got her coffee, she had asked for a coffee. They gave her a coffee, and for some reason, her lawyers on either side of her were really paying close attention to how she stirred her coffee. I don't know why that was so important to them, but it just seemed very strange. She had to have her coffee, and then they seemed to be very interested in making sure that she stirred this little sugar packet into her coffee. Use of that something to frame Justice Kavanaugh. Now, when I read this first, the first thing that really hit me, and of course, I'm not saying that this would be the case, but I thought of Cory Booker. I wondered if something had happened to her because of Cory Booker, and she was using that to frame Justice Kavanaugh. Just throwing that out there. Don't take that as in I'm saying that to be the truth. But for some reason, that thought popped in my head. Dr. Ford's family has strong ties to swamp. Yeah, well, we've kind of gone over this extensively, right? And we keep uncovering more and more and more. Her grandfather was a clown. Her father was a clown. Definitely had ties to the MK Ultra program, right? And her brother, of course, worked for Baker Hostetler, the firm that later became Fusion GPS. So the ties are absolutely deep. FBI has expanded investigation into other suspicious acts with support of ABC agency as authorized by POTUS. Rod Rowe involved. So now we've got Rod Rowe involved in this, and I don't even know where to begin with that. Could that be in regards to Rod Rosenstein's wife, Lisa Barsoomian? Not really sure. But we know that something doesn't add up with this Dr. Ford, and that's why the FBI has expanded this investigation into other suspicious acts, because I have a feeling what we're going to end up turning up is going to be a lot of clownish activities, and that is going to set off, once again, Justice Kavanaugh confirmation, the red line being crossed, Rod Rowe being fired, the D-class of the Whopper with cheese. So you can tell me where you think Rod Rosenstein was involved, but thinking about that coffee situation also made me think back to this previous post here. In the end, you will be shocked to learn what you've essentially witnessed. Could it be that shock is referring to some sort of MK Ultra previous shock treatment, and maybe that little sugar in her coffee was some sort of essence that was helping her rememberize exactly what happened? Not really sure, just stuff that was going through my mind. Let's go ahead and move on to the next post right here. 2306. 33 minutes after the hour of 3 p.m. We get this Twitter link, and Q says, 9 minutes in, we will be voting this week. Heading to Tennessee now. Q. That takes you to the Twitter of Fox News. Senate Majority Leader McConnell delivers remarks on Kavanaugh hearings. Q wants us to check out 9 minutes in. It's essentially the end of the speech. Let's check it out.
The time for endless delay and obstruction has come to a close. Judge Kavanaugh's nomination is out of committee. We're considering it here on the floor. And Mr. President, we'll be voting this week.
Mitch McConnell looking at everybody like, yeah, what? I said it. We're voting this week. No more moving the goalposts. It's time to reconcile. Well, Trump may have 99 problems, but a Mitch ain't one. We're going to get that vote next week, and hopefully it'll be glorious. Let's move on to 2307. 9 minutes after the hour of 5 p.m., Q Plus comes on and gives us this YouTube link right here. And this is a Reagan speech. It's 4 minutes and 46 seconds long. I'm not going to play it for you because I get hit with a lot of copyright these days, but I do highly suggest you checking it out. Of course, it'll be in the links below. You can always find it on the Q page that you read from. But there you go, post 2308. 2 minutes after the hour of 6 p.m., responding to an Anon who asks, what time is the rally in Tennessee tonight? Eastern time. And Q says, does POTUS normally tweet heading to X prior to a rally? Well, yes, he does. Today, for the first time, we identify where we would be reconcile. Q. So what are we talking about here? Yeah, that's funny. This time Q said heading to Tennessee now instead of waiting for President Trump to tweet that. We find out a little bit more about that in 2309, 10 minutes after the hour of 6 p.m. And we see where Anon has put this together, underlining the previous post, heading to Tennessee now. Q is saying that Trump normally tweets where he is going, when he is going. Today he didn't. Today Q posted where he is going. Pick related, and Q confirms. There you go. So if you're new to Q, you can start seeing that connection right there. And we see that even more here in the next post, 23:10, 25 minutes after the hour 6 p.m. Anon puts this graphic together. I've got it blown up over here. And you see the first one. Does POTUS normally tweet heading to X prior to a rally? Let me see if I can get that bigger. There we go. And you can see that Q says heading to Tennessee now. Normally Donald Trump's tweets say where they're going, heading to West Virginia, Ohio, Dubuque, Missouri, South Carolina. So you see what's going on. So if you are new to Q, now you can start seeing that Q President Trump connection. Post 23:11, 27 minutes after the hour 6, and Anon posts his flag here, says thank you Q. Q says God bless you Patriot. Q. 23:12. Q is responding to an Anon over here on HN who posts this. Q, me and mine stand behind you to the end. Say the word. We've been preparing a long time and we're ready. We're here to help you however we can. You know who this is. God bless you and God bless POTUS. Q responds, darkest days. Amen, brother. This evil must be destroyed. Q. Well, I'm not exactly sure who Q is talking to there, if Q really actually knows that person or not. I'm not going to bother to speculate, but we're all here for you, Q. Post 23:13, 1 minute after the hour of 7 p.m. Responding to an Anon who says, burn disabled and amputee veteran. Wife and I are ready. My injuries will be with it when we overthrow evil. And I'm assuming this AATW is airborne all the way. Q says, no worries, Patriot. Allow us to carry this heavy burden. Trust your fellow man. We will win. God bless you and your family. Q. Well, we will win. We're going to win for all of us, and it's going to be a big win. It's going to be glorious. 2018 is going to be glorious. All right, that's all I got for you. Those are your Q posts for today. Stay safe. We have some big days coming up ahead. We're going to see what's going on with this whole Kavanaugh situation. Hopefully, we will get a FISA D class shortly after the Kavanaugh confirmation. And yeah, we're going to be getting this emergency broadcast system message coming up too. So I will not be getting that message. So for those of you who will be getting it, I would love it if, it doesn't need to be all of you, but maybe if just a few of you would screenshot or maybe even film what's going on. I would love to see it so that we can talk about it in the next video after that. Okay, those are your Q posts. Finally, I want to leave you with a couple other stories here. You are looking at a Black Hawk helicopter. Looks like it is conducting some sort of exercise near Wrigley Field. This was the other day on the 27th in Chicago. There were a lot of people that called in and asking about this. Looks like the local news stations are reporting that this was just a training exercise. I don't know if you can see off in the distance. It looks like there's a jet out here, kind of right over there. It looks like it disappeared past the clouds. Not really sure what's going on. Looked like they were doing kind of a fast line operation on the top of a building and made off. Not really sure what happened there, but they are saying that it's simply just an exercise. That video came off of the drive.com. This is called The War Zone, and it's written by Tyler Rogaway. And I'm just going to take you down to part of what he wrote here. But he's talking about how he got a lot of tips and questions regarding this UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter. He goes on to say that it's a training operation, but I found this part pretty interesting down here. There's a few different videos. I'll leave this for you too. Some cool pictures here from their Twitter handles too. But it says here, the UH-60M Black Hawk, photographed and filmed all over Chicago, does not appear to belong to the United States Army. The configuration of its antennas is unique, and it does not have any Army titles or serials on it. Over the last decade, a number of UH-60s of various subtypes have been transferred from the DoD to federal agencies like the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice has also bought UH-60Ms by piggybacking the Army's buys. This appears to be one of those aircraft. As for the operators themselves, their kit looks top-notch. Note the 4-tube wide field of view night vision goggles made famous by the dev group SEAL Team 6 mission to kill or capture on Osama bin Laden. These are still somewhat rare pieces of equipment. The unit that put on this awesome, albeit unexpected display likely belongs to the Department of Justice's Critical Incident Response Group, which includes the vaunted FBI Hostage Rescue Team, also known as HRT, now in its 35th year of existence. HRT is the nation's top law enforcement counterterrorism direct action unit. Very exciting stuff. So if you've got any information on what happened in Chicago, I would love to know. And it looks like the rally wasn't the only thing popping off in Tennessee. Hundreds of guns stolen from UPS facility in Tennessee. About 400 guns have been stolen from a United Parcel Service facility in Memphis, Tennessee, and authorities are concerned about the theft's potential effects on public safety in this city and elsewhere. 2 people driving a U-Haul truck stole the weapons from a UPS facility in Memphis on Sunday, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives said Monday. The agency is asking for the public's help in this case. It offered a $5,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction. Investigators are looking into exactly how many guns were taken, but the estimate of 400 stolen firearms makes it one of the largest single gun thefts the ATF has investigated. Bureau spokesman Michael Knight said ATF agents and the Memphis Police Department are reviewing manifests and bills to determine where the guns were shipped from and where they were going. Memphis, like other large metropolitan areas, has a problem with violent crime, including gun-related offenses. The metro area, with more than 1.3 million people, saw an estimated 15,737 violent crimes in 2017, FBI statistics showed. UPS said in a statement that it is working with law enforcement but does not comment on open investigations. Such a high number of stolen guns could present a danger to the safety of the public and first responders in the West Tennessee city and elsewhere because they could be transported to other places within hours, Knight said. We are concerned that the firearms will end up on the streets, not only potentially in the Memphis area, but also across the country, Knight said. The criminal element knows no geographical boundary. ATF is asking the public to send it social media posts, photos, or any other information related to the theft. Knight said investigating a theft from a shipping facility is more complicated than a gun shop, for example, because weapons at gun stores are isolated in inventory. It's a very tedious process that we're looking at to make sure that every firearm is accounted for from the shipper as well as from the receiver, Knight said. So this is a really crazy story and really crazy times coming out of Tennessee. How about that? And let me leave you with one more thing over here. I'm on the page of the Judiciary.Senate.gov. Here are their hearings and meeting schedules. And as you can see, what we've got scheduled here for the third oversight of the enforcement of the antitrust laws. Interesting stuff. Why don't we take a little peek at that? Looks like that's going to be going on at 2:30 p.m. in the Dirksen Senate Office Building 226. And it looks like there's going to be live video of this hearing. So interesting times indeed. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who've been sharing my videos. I greatly appreciate it. News is happening very, very fast these days. So hang tight and we'll try and keep on top of it as much as we can. If you are new to my channel, thanks for joining me, and I want to remind you that from time to time you will be unclicked, unnotified, and unsubscribed. That's just the game that we play here online with some of the big corporate conglomerates. So just keep checking back. I usually post when Q posts, and if Q doesn't post, I usually post every 24 to 48 hours. All right, that's all I got for you. My Gab link is down below, my BitChute, my Real.Video, my Twitter at IPOT1776. That's at IPOT1776. My email's down below, as well as my Patreon link if you want to support the channel. Okay, kids, this is Sir Patrick Mack. Stay safe until next time.